Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of July 9th to the 15th, where I take a look at a couple of stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion, though. And we got 4 stories to cover, including, I want to give my take on the Pikmin 4 demo that recently just tried out, though. My thoughts on limited game runs doing their showcase, though. The interesting saga that we're seeing that supposedly hopefully will lead to conclusion to the whole Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard, and sort of the odd thing that we're seeing this week, and we'll have to find out hopefully soon about whether this deal will close or not. And Square Enix making some interesting comments, even considering the possibility of remastering some old titles and all. If you're interested in where I got the source of these information, links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. But before we get started, I like to do what I like to call the quick My 2 Cents, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details and all. The first one is that Indie Creates. This is the same studio that is famous for games like the Blaster Master Zero series, the Gunga Vote, and the, let's just say, fan favorite or fan service favorite Galgun games, have now announced a new 2D action game called Umbra Claw. It's being in development for the Nintendo Switch. Judging by some of the footage that they have shown so far about that game, it seems as though it is, of course, obviously is a 2D game, but you definitely can't help but shake the feeling to somewhat a mixture or somewhat of a Shantae gameplay, to possibly even the art style being almost kind of close to the kind of stuff that Capcom's classic Okami was well known for. So it is certainly one I'll be keeping an eye out for. We also learned that a new game based in the Hellboy franchise is basically announced for the Nintendo Switch. No new trailer has shown, but it's basically the game that was shown during the Xbox Indies presentation, though. Judging from what they showed so far, visually it looks almost like something close to the Devolver Digital's Weird West, which is a good game. I like to point that out. So I'll be keeping an eye on that one, though. Hellboy, yeah, I know they had the 2 movies, Hellboy and Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. Then there was one that looks like they tried to reboot it, but that one didn't do too well at the box office. So, but still, I'll keep an eye on this one. And we also learned that EA Sports has showed off FC 24 for the Nintendo Switch. We now know that it basically is running on supposedly the Frostbite engine, and it will have basically Ultimate Team in it, though, something I think a lot of Switch owners would have liked to see. Personally, I'm a little iffy because of EA's history, especially with their support for the Switch, so I'm not really sure about this. I'm sure there might be an audience that probably is looking forward to this title, but it's definitely not on my radar at this time. And last but not least, unfortunately, we have now learned that the actors have now decided to join the writers in terms of the whole writer strike going on in the movie and TV side part of it, though. So yeah, I think this was started when it was announced by the actress that starred in the TV show, 90s TV show The Nanny. We have also learned that this has had an impact on several movies, from Ridley Scott's sequel to Gladiator to Deadpool 3, and Mission Impossible has now been impacted, and products and basically has been halted right now. We'll see how long this strike is going to last and all, so we'll see what comes out. Hopefully they'll negotiate something, but right now it looks like unless something is resolved, you might be stuck with watching reruns, which is kind of okay with me because there's some shows I want to catch up and watch and everything, so that may not be a bad thing for me, to be exact and all. But yeah, we'll see what happens with this. Hopefully they'll resolve it soon, but time will ultimately tell, however. Okay, with the quick My 2 Cent part now done, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with Square Enix. An interesting question that was asked about basically several possibility of a remaster or a remake of some of their older titles and all. Now, obviously, Final Fantasy 16 has kind of been taking the high, it's been stealing kind of the spotlight for Square Enix to a certain extent, as that game although debatable whether it's done well or not. Some think it did, some think it didn't, but it certainly has gotten positive reviews. But we've also seen Square Enix kind of dip their toes in sort of remakes or remasters or different takes on or spin on some of their older games like Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, Triangle Strategy. We even see remakes with Live Alive, and there's also, Dragon Quest 3 getting the same HD 2D remake, although kind of remain quiet about that one. However, recently a shareholder basically asked a question to Square Enix about the possibility of revising some of their IPs, particularly one by the name of the Xenogears series, possibly seeing that get the remake treatment or not. Well, this was asked, and this is kind of Square's gave a response to this. In an article from Video Game Chronicles, it reads, quote, "Speaking recently as part of the company's 43rd annual shareholders meeting Q&A, Square Enix board was asked about the company's plan to remaster some of its older titles following the success of the Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered, which was released earlier this year." This shareholder asked, quote, "Final Fantasy 1 through 6 Pixel Remaster has been well received. Are there any plans to remaster other past titles? Personally, I would like to play Xenogears," asked one of the shareholders. A member of the Square board replied, quote, "We will refrain from sharing information about new titles, but we are considering various ideas within the company and hope you will look forward to forthcoming announcement." Square was also asked about why the company has a longer gap between game releases than its peers do, and what the board thought were on the planning release schedule for upcoming major titles. One of the persons said, quote, "I will refrain from speaking specifically, but I will say we believe that the strength of our internal development organization will be benefit as the difficulty of developing major titles is becoming extremely high, which also has implications for the development lead team. We hope that this reinforcement of our organization will promote development not only for major titles, but also new IPs under a new management team." So it's kind of interesting to see this person ask that question, though. Does this automatically mean that Xenogears is going to get a remake treatment, or maybe other titles like Brave and Misaki, if I'm saying the name correctly, or Misaki Samurai Legend, or Parasite Eve for that matter? Again, it's not a guarantee, but if Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered 1 through 6 did very well, Square Enix may consider the possibility of remaking some of those older titles, though. Xenogears, it would be kind of interesting because the original development team was Monolith Soft, which is now owned by Nintendo, which is currently has focus on the Xenoblade Chronicles series 1 through 3, and of course helping out with the Zelda series as well, with Breath of the Wild and of course Tears of the Kingdom too. So it would be interesting to see if, let's say, Square Enix were to decide to remaster or remake Xenogears. I mean, unless they decide to make it exclusive for the Switch, the only other possibility is have another like Porthouse Studio handle that game or not. So we'll see over time whether or not Xenogears will get the remaster or remake treatment, though. But given the success that, like I said, about Final Fantasy Pixel Art 1 through 6 has done, I would say it would certainly would like to see them remake a game like that. And should that happens and Xenogears remake or remaster does very well, maybe that will convince Bandai Namco to consider the Xenosaga getting the remaster treatment. I think Baten Kaitos is getting one. Maybe, I remember hearing that they weren't sure about a remaster of those three games. Well, excuse me, it's my cat. He knocked the computer screen over. But it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility or anything like that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to be taking a look at the interesting saga that's being played out right now with the whole Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard versus, the whole FTC and the CMA kind of situation that's been playing out this week. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my 2 cent video, and sorry if my computer kind of moved around or my camera moved around a bit. I'm babysitting my parents' cat, Rocky, and so right now he's, last time I checked, currently sitting on my desk in front of the computer right now looking out the window. Hopefully he doesn't move. He just stares and takes a look to whatever is fascinated outside for him and everything like that. So apologize if the camera sort of moved a bit and everything like that. But anyway, we'll get started in our second part though, and this one has to do with the Microsoft and Activision saga. Now, this whole thing has been played out for like a whole year, and we've seen ups and downs and bumps on the roads along the way throughout this whole merger and acquisition that's been played out though. We saw what happened in April when the CMA decided to block the deal in a way which kind of was surprised by some folks, and many thought the deal was dead. Then of course we learned the EU basically gave the go-ahead, not to mention other countries have also given the go-ahead on this deal, which to some felt like this deal may not have been as dead as some people had originally thought. Not to mention I felt like the EU's decision and the CMA blocking it kind of to a certain degree kind of threw Brexit back into the spotlight though. And of course we were basically going to hear what the courts were going to say in terms of this merger and acquisition going forth. Well, earlier this week on Tuesday though, the FTC judge ruled on the case and decided to rule against the FTC and in favor of Microsoft and Activision on this deal to go forward though, ending this so-called injunction to basically block this deal and everything like that, at least on Tuesday. According to an article from The Verge, here's what Judge Corley said in the following though, quote, Microsoft's acquisition of Activision has been described as the largest in tech history. It deserves scrutiny. That scrutiny has paid off. Microsoft has committed in writing, in public, and in court to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years on parity with Xbox. It also made an agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Switch. And it entered several agreements for the first time bringing Activision content to several cloud gaming service. This court responsibility in this case is narrow. It is to decide if, notwithstanding these current circumstances, the merger should be halted, perhaps even terminated, pending resolution on the FTC administrative action. For this reason explained, the court finds the FTC has not shown a likelihood it would prevail on its claim this particular vertical merger in this specific industry may be substantially less competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumers' access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion for the peremptory, apologize if I'm saying correctly, injunction is therefore denied. So right away, it gave the conclusion that basically that this deal was absolutely was going to go through. Well, by Wednesday, and I believe, or Thursday, I forgot which one, apparently the FTC decided to respond to that, as it was reported that apparently they are now want to appeal to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. This was breaking from Tom Warner, who basically wrote on Twitter, breaking, the FTC has filed an appeal against Judge Corney's decision to deny his preliminary injunction request over Microsoft's proposal Activision Blizzard acquisition though. And recently, following this ruling, it appears as though that the UK regulators or the CMA might be re-examining some of their approaches at the very least. They have announced to extend Microsoft Activision merger decision deadline by 6 weeks. CMA will now make a final ruling by August 29th. Though, this is from Video Game Chronicles, it reads that, quote, the regulatory has been scheduled to deliver its ruling on the 69 billion mergers by July 18th, but will now do so by August 29th. The CMA considers that there is insignificant time remaining in the statutory period for a full and proper consideration of Microsoft's submission on the proposed order, the watchdog says. As such, the inquiry group considers that there are several reasons to extend the 6 weeks. The revised period that will therefore end on 29th of August 2023. However, the inquiry group aimed to discharge its duties as soon as possible and in advance of this date. The CMA initially blocked the deal in April due to concerns about the impact on cloud gaming market, though. They also said that Microsoft had been scheduled to appeal the decision in court case beginning on July 28th, but earlier this week, the Xbox maker and the CMA paused legal proceeding with a view to reach an out-of-court agreement. Microsoft is now reportedly considering selling some of its UK cloud gaming rights in a bid to seal regulatory approval for the deal. According to Bloomberg, the company could sell the cloud-based market rights for games in the UK to a telecommunication, gaming, or internet-based computing company, or possibly a private equity firm. It has also been claimed that Microsoft executives have been exploring ways to close the acquisition despite a UK veto on the deal. Microsoft wants to complete the transaction before its current merger agreement expires on July 18th, after which Microsoft could walk away with a $3 billion termination fee if an extension isn't agreed. Although I've asked this question back and forth. Even my dad believes that it's possible they could extend it and everything like that. So drama certainly is playing out this whole entire week with the whole Microsoft and Activision deal, to be exact, though. Personally, I think more than likely, and we've seen reports about, Activision being taken off, the NASDAQ, or at least being delisted to a certain degree. I'm more on the side that I still believe this deal will probably go through at the end, though. I mean, we'll have to wait until midnight to see, or wait to hear what the Ninth Circuit Courts of Appeal has to say. As far as I'm recording this video, we haven't heard anything, so by the time this video comes up tomorrow on Saturday, we'll know for certain what the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal may or may not say. But I am still on the camp of this deal probably more than likely will go through. I'm still mixed on the idea of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard and willing to spend almost $70 billion. I do think it does raise certain concerns about the idea of these tech companies buying these, or these big corporations buying these companies, though. But at the same time, I'm not saying I'm fully 100% agree with Linda Khan's approach to this either. And throughout the entire trial, it kind of gave the impression that she was siding with Sony and everything like that. And that kind of, well, let's just say that didn't help her case to a certain extent. There were other things, but didn't help her case at all. So I still believe most likely this deal will probably close, though. I mean, it's possible. Yes, there's always a possibility they could pay the $3 billion and walk away. I also wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that they could extend the deadline. That's certainly not out of the realm of possibility, though. But I'm still on the camp that this is most likely probably going to go through. Even though I'm mixed about it, I still think more likely it will. So overall, very interesting drama that we're seeing played out of this, though. The deal certainly isn't dead. Microsoft and Activision certainly won in the FTC case. We'll see how the appeals go, but based on what I've been hearing and based on what I've been hearing from different stuff like Floss Mueller on Twitter and Hogan's Law, who does those virtual legalities and all, it sounds like it's more and more likely that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal will not take this up or might say no to the FTC, and most likely this deal is going to close. So again, I could be wrong on this, and we'll know hopefully by tomorrow we'll find out, but I'm more on the camp that, yeah, this deal is most likely going to close, and I think at that point, Microsoft will own Activision, Blizzard, and all. So that's how I see it overall, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with limited run games doing their showcase and all, and what I liked and what I didn't like during, or at least for what I read, what was announced during their showcase and everything. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of my True Scent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at limited run games as they recently had their showcase and all. Now, I'm sure if you're a Switch owner or in general though, you've probably heard of limited run games before. They are mostly known for doing physical copies of games that often won't get like an actual physical release. Most of the times they're a digital release. This is very common this to me is more common if you're like a Nintendo Switch owner, as we've seen how some developers have opted to only release their game digital and all. Not all developers, but a good amount of developers we've seen that only release the digital version, where limited runs will sometimes step in and willing to pay to have the physical versions happen. The downside to this is that it tends to take a little bit longer for the physical versions of these games to happen though. So you may have to be sort of waiting a while before these games make their way over, the physical versions are shipped to your door. Some people like that, some people are okay with it, some people aren't a big fan of it and all. Well, recently they had their showcase to show off basically games that they would be bringing over, or their games that they have announced during their showcase. And some of them were kind of surprising though. Some announcements like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 Complete Edition. We also saw like Clock Tower was happening, Gargoyles Remastered, and also there were some interesting announcements and all. Sadly, I didn't get to watch the showcase, unfortunately. That's kind of a bummer for me though, to be exact. Maybe I'll get a chance this evening to watch it and all. But I did get a chance to read what was announced and looked at a lot of the stuff, and there were some pretty good announcements that were made in terms of what was shown during the limited run showcase. So what I'll do is I'll break it down into what I like and what I didn't like, and mixed or not 100% sure about. In terms of what I like though, I definitely did like the announcement of the Castlevania Advance collections. These were basically Castlevania games that were around during the Game Boy Advance. So that certainly is nice to see this collection being announced. It's definitely, I probably will try to get my hands on those ones. Those ones looks really good. The next one, of course, were two that I did not expect to hear announced, but they did, is that they're going to do a remaster of Tomba and the Gex Trilogy, which is certainly very interesting. I never tried any of these games out. I've seen the commercials for them, but never really tried them out. Gex, I may have heard here and there. I remember they were bringing it over to the Nintendo 64, to seeing some ports to the Game Boy Color and also. But to hear this one, definitely open to it, and who knows? Maybe this opens the door to the Legend of Kain Soul Reaper getting a remaster or a remake treatment though. Obviously, I mentioned Gargoyles Remastered. That certainly is nice indeed. The other ones is El Shaddai on Ascent of the Metatron, if I'm saying the name correctly though. That one is definitely one I'll be keeping an eye out on that. And the fact that a lot of these games are coming to the Nintendo Switch and all, so that certainly is nice, especially for Switch owners out there. So there were some pretty interesting announcements that I did enjoy. As far as what I didn't like or mix or not 100% sure, mostly on the mix and not sure about though, is the Jurassic Park game collection was basically announced. That's my cat walking through again. I don't know why he's doing that, but he is. Anyway, the Jurassic Park Classic Game Collection, while it's certainly nice that they announced this, there are certainly some questions about it, including, is it going to be an improved port? Like, will they have like a save option better than what it was back when those who may have rented the game back when they were kids on the Super Nintendo, like the dreaded password system? And judging from what they showed, it doesn't look like they're showing any of the games from the Sega Genesis version of the Jurassic Park. So it seems to be more on the Super Nintendo side of it, which again, not bad, but it would have been nice to see that they were also going to bring the the ones from the Genesis as well. The next one is Arzette, the Jewel Faramore, if I'm saying the name correctly. This one's a little weird on so many levels. I did not expect them to do a spiritual successor to the god-awful Philips CDI Zelda game. I never heard about this until I saw an episode of the Angry Video Game Nerd, and he talked about it, and yeah, it was pretty bad and cringeworthy. So, I mean, I'm not really sure about this title. I mean, it plays it fine or anything like that. I mean, I might consider it. I'll have to see what the reviews on this one might be, though. On it, though, I mean, I'll give Limited Run Games credit for doing this title and everything like that, so I'll give them credit for it, though. But right now, I'm not really sure in terms of proclaiming this being the spiritual successor to basically, you know, the god-awful full of CDI Zelda games, though. And last but not least was, I think, some of the decisions with Shantae Advance Risky Revolution. Now, for those who are not aware, this was supposedly another Shantae game that was supposed to come out to the Game Boy Advance, but it never really saw the light of day. And this one, I'm a little bit mixed on what Limited Run Game is trying to do with this one. On one hand, I think it's great that this game is getting revived, and the fact that they're going to bring it to the Game Boy Advance actual cartridge for it is kind of interesting, considering the fact that basically that we've seen them also port games to Game Boy Color, and are willing to do that. So I'll give Limited Run credit, hats off to that, and the developers as well. But at the same time, I just wish they also announced it coming to modern platforms like the Switch or the Xbox Series systems or the PS4 or PS5. So I'm a little mixed that right now it's only coming to sort of the Game Boy Advance and everything like that, and not any of the modern consoles. I mean, great if you're a retro collector and all. I'm not against that in any way, but just sort of mixed with this approach or everything like that. Overall, I would say, based on what I read about what they announced, though, I mean, this isn't necessarily bad. Obviously, some of the games may or may not appeal to everyone. It's going to depend on your preference and taste. Some of it is you're willing to spend the money, or if you're willing to have some patience, considering, excuse me, limited run games do take a bit while for them to ship and, you know, make and everything like that. But I will say some of the games they did announce were pretty neat, though. Obviously, the Castlevania Advanced Collection, Tomba, Gex Trilogy. So nice, and certainly not bad what they announced, though. Some games I do question. Some of the approach I do, like Shantae's Advance being only for Game Boy Advance at this time. But I will say, overall, I did like what I saw to some degree. Some titles I'm going to try out. Others, like Arzette, the Jewel Faramore, if I'm saying that name correctly, I might wait for a review first before making a decision whether or not it's worth the time and effort to put money down on that one, to be exact. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 4, our final part. I want to give my thoughts on the Pikmin 4 demo that I recently tried out. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our 4th and final video, part of this My 2 Cent video. And for this one, I want to give my take on the Pikmin 4 demo that I recently tried out, though. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware that Pikmin 4 is coming out, I believe, a little bit later this year, though. I think it might be October or September or maybe November. I'm not 100% sure, so I apologize if I get the date wrong, though. But it is certainly interesting to see the Pikmin series start making its way over to the Nintendo Switch. We know that they are bringing the first and second one over. I know the physical version is going to be coming, and they also remember reporting over Pikmin 3. So to see them bring a 4th entry is kind of interesting, to be exact, though. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a huge Pikmin fan, though, but I do think the concept is kind of neat, where you play as the astronaut. Play this astronaut by the name of Captain Omar, if I'm saying his name correctly, who controls these different Pikmin creatures, and you use these ranging from bringing items over to your ship to basically battling certain enemies, and you also have to know which Pikmin to use in which situation and all, as some Pikmin might be okay with certain environments, others may not. You also have sort of a time limit, so you have to make sure you get your Pikmin back into their own little ship, otherwise any Pikmin that are caught outside during the evening unfortunately suffered an unfortunate fate. In other words, they die and everything like that. So with the 4th one, basically what we saw was basically 2 different chapters based on my time with it. One is playing as the original hero from Pikmin, the first one, and the other one is basically a custom character you made by yourself and all. In the one where you play as the original character from the first Pikmin, the setting basically is sort of inside a house, and you have to sort of really look for the other Pikmins before taking on different creatures and all. Along the way, you'll come up with this sort of like this dog-like creature, which can come in handy as they can basically help basically carry several different Pikmins, like carry a lot, which can kind of come in handy depending on the kind of situation, especially if, like, let's say you need to cross like some sort of lake or something like that. That sort of is really neat, and I'm very curious to see how this creature would be used in like later levels and all. One other part was a battle with a certain creature which had like different shells, and you had to basically had shells with spikes that pop in and out, so you had to sort of time your attack. Plus, on top of that, your dog can also do a charge, which can come in handy in terms of tackling different enemies. To basically, let's say if there's an area where a Pikmin might be, use that dog to charge right in to knock the Pikmin down, so you can pick them up and bring them up. You could call on them and so forth, though. In the later levels, I basically was able to use my custom character and bring them into the battle, though, and we had basically started off with a smaller version of the dog that was used during the opening area, though, although this one still had its limitations and all, but it still had some abilities of the Pikmin, though. It can attack certain enemies and carry certain items, very similar to basically what we've seen in past Pikmin games and all. Visually, I would say it definitely looks good on the Nintendo Switch, though. I do like some of the settings. I like the opening that it's in a house. The other one is in the garden, especially looking at different items and all. I do like how you are able to switch between different Pikmins and everything like that. You can command the red one, or you can command the dog, and so forth. So there are certainly some neat ideas. Gameplay-wise, it's kind of similar to past Pikmin games, though. They do shake up the formula a little bit, but it's pretty close if you played past Pikmin games. Some of the new areas is they have sort of the underground areas, to be exact, so that one looks kind of neat. I don't know how far the demo is going to go, so I still have to try it out, but it does seem to indicate that if you complete the demo, obviously you could take some stuff over to the main game should you decide to buy it, though. I will say I am liking what I'm seeing with the demo so far. Gameplay-wise, as I mentioned, very similar to past Pikmin game. The use of the dog looks really neat from the small one to the big one, and I'm kind of curious to see how they'll utilize that in later levels and everything like that. And I'm very curious to see if there are going to be other Pikmins out there. I know that they mentioned one that could be used during the nighttime, so I'm very curious to see how that will play out if you do play during the nighttime levels, though. So I will say, based on what I've seen so far, it looks very promising. I can see how Pikmin fans will probably enjoy this game and everything like that. It's probably one I will try out. One control scheme I've yet to try out is any of the motion controls, if the game has it, although looking at past Pikmin games, I wouldn't be surprised if it is. I mean, I'm very curious to see how that will be if you play the game like that, rather than using the traditional controller and all. But my takeaway so far with the Pikmin 4 demo is I like what I'm seeing. I probably will keep an eye out for Pikmin 4. Maybe not on the same level as Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but definitely one I will definitely be keeping an eye out on my radar for that one. And I'm definitely keeping my eye out for the physical versions of Pikmin 1 and 2, which supposedly will come sometime, I believe, before the end of the year, but definitely this game is on my radar and all. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the idea of Square Enix remastering some older titles, including something like Xenogear? Do you think they should continue? Do you think they should do that, though? Are there certain titles you think Square Enix should remaster in any way? Do you think Xenogear is definitely one that deserves a remaster or a remake treatment by any chance? what are your thoughts about the whole saga with Microsoft and Activision and the whole FTC situation? Do you think the judge was right to deny the FTC's request? Do you think it was right to side with Microsoft and Activision on this deal? Do you believe Microsoft and Activision will close this deal, or do you think there will be more hurdles thrown at it, to be exact? What did you thought about the limited run showcase? Did you get a chance to watch it? And if so, were there games that they announced that you liked or you didn't like by any chance? And finally, what are your thoughts about the Pikmin 4 demo? Have you tried the demo out? And if so, did you like what was shown at the demo or not? Has this convinced you to pick up Pikmin 4 or maybe try out Pikmin 3 or the past Pikmin games, to be exact? Did you like what I said in this video? Did you not like what I said in this video? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I will appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me, Patreon, or Steam Labs. Links will be in the description of this video, so you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!